Okay, I did start the recording. Um, and back to Phil Ang. Um,
Good morning.
Hi. So,
Morning.
Mr. Ang, just checking your mic at this point. Do you have a camera? Will you be video, audio, or both?
I thought I turned on the video. Let me see.
I see you,
You do.
Phil.
Okay, great. Good. So Ernie's going to give an intro, and we're going to hear Star Spangled Banner and just a little blurb from one of our sponsors, and then we'll be turning it over to you.
Okay, very good.
Good morning. We usually begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, but that not being practical, we're going to stop.
Ernie, I think you're a few minutes early. Just
Okay.
wait till 9 in case there's people who are just coming in, okay?
Okay.
I was just telling Mr. Ang the agenda of how it's going to go. I didn't want us to kick off yet. Just
Okay.
like I say, in case there's people just assuming we aren't going to start until exactly 9.
All right. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I have about 5 minutes or so.
We can wait. I just wanted to get in to make sure the IT stuff works.
Yeah, looks like it. And I'm going to go ahead and mute you, and then I will unmute you again when your portion starts. Got it?
Great.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Do we know how many people are signed on, Frank?
No, I didn't check that.
Okay.
People are entering now, though, so I'm glad we waited until 9.
Yes. Yeah, we got 3 more minutes. I just picked it up on my phone.
Right. Ernie, I'm just going to go ahead and activate your camera, and then once you see the clock is the right time, you can begin, okay?
Okay, that's we're still 2 minutes out.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that we had your camera cued correctly, so when the time is right, you may begin the meeting.
I had to put my hat on so everybody knows who I am.
That's right. Well, without the mustache, I think we wouldn't know who you are.
Well, I had to shave too because I wasn't shaving lately. Show business is very precise.
Yeah, I'm just, Ken, you have your hand up right now. Um, did you have a question, or was that just what you were testing? I'm going to assume he was just testing. Okay. Yeah, a number of people are still arriving, though, these last few minutes.
Okay, we are starting. Okay. Good morning. You know, we usually start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and that not being practical, what we're going to do is play the national anthem. And Frank will put that on in a moment. and then we'll get to the program. All right, and we start out by giving credit to our premier sponsors, which support us on the beginning of each year. Those sponsors are Louis Jones, Avalone, and Vilas, and that's a very formidable law firm that has been supporting us for several years. And also Toomey, Latham Shea, Kelly Dubin, and Quintorero has also been sponsoring us. It's also a very fine law firm. And Gersha Recycling. And then we have, as a matter of fact, as of yesterday, Covanter Energy is sponsoring us on an annual basis. And so we thank them very much. And then, of course, we have the sponsors for the particular, program that we're doing at this time. And today's sponsor is Desktop Solutions. Lynn Nielsen is in the audience, and she is going to be talking about their programs. They're very professional services, and they perform them very well. And incidentally, they are the program, they have served our program for since 2002. So Lynn, if you're ready to explain what you do, I think it's time to do that.
Thank you, Ernie. Good morning, everyone. Appreciate the ability to talk a little bit about Desktop Solutions. We build smart websites that give companies a competitive edge, improve communication, and reduce costs. We do this using modern responsive website design and development tools. We build iOS and Android apps, e-commerce solutions, SMS and voice applications, and we make sure that everybody's website is ADA compliant. We also do digital marketing, including video marketing, email marketing, social media programs, and digital advertising. So if you're looking to take your website to the next level, we'd be happy to talk to you about your business goals and evaluate the best way to turn your website into a powerful tool that can give you a competitive edge. If you'd like to go on our website, it's www.desktopsolutions.com, or you could give me a call at the number below or at my email, lynn@desktopsolutions.com. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll be going to Phil Ang in a moment, but before we do that, I just want you to know that if you have questions that come up during the presentation or even after the presentation, you get to ask those questions by raising your hand. And the way you do that is you press Alt-Y on your keyboard, and the host will call on you. So it gives me a lot of pleasure to meet Phil Ang again, even if it's virtually. He's a remarkable person from his beginnings, he is now the president of the MTA Long Island Railroad, the largest commuter railroad in the nation, serving over 89 million rides a year. And Phil has initiated Railroad Forward program, a set of strategic initiatives aimed at improving service reliability, enhancing the customer experience. And under Phil's leadership, Long Island Railroad is delivering an historic $6 billion capital program to modernize, expand its infrastructure, including double track, main line expansion, east side access, and Jamaica capacity improvements, a new M9 fleet, and centralized train control. Phil joined the MTA as president in 2017, and he's been the chief operating officer since then. And Phil began his career in public service in 1983 with the New York State Department of Transportation, and as a junior engineer. He constantly gained knowledge in many facets of this very, very complex transportation system. Please welcome our guest. Phil, it's great to see you again.
Well, thank you, Ernie, and I'm sorry we all can't be in person, but I appreciate the opportunity to have a chance to discuss about everything going on at Long Island Railroad. Good morning to everyone. I hope everyone has been safe and doing well during these unprecedented times. And certainly it has been, unprecedented for us here at Long Island Railroad as well. But some of the things you talked about, Ernie, what we've been working on over the last few years since I've got here was about improving service for the people that rely on the railroad, work on improving the reliability of that service, the safety of that service, and Long Island Railroad Forward, the concepts behind that have enabled us to continue to do what we've been doing during this pandemic right now. Obviously, before April, we were seeing record ridership. And the beginning of this year, we were seeing record ridership even more than we had last year in 2019. And we have a long history of being vital to Long Island and New York metropolitan area, 185 years. And I expect that once we get through the pandemic, we will be a key component of rebuilding and revitalizing the economy and supporting the communities that we serve. And that's why some of the things that I'll talk about is important as we look to rebuild the publics as they come out of staying at home, as they can start to enter the next phases and become part of the essential workforce again. Giving them a sense of everything that we've done to date to keep Long Island Railroad safe. So back in April and March, actually, when things started to impact Long Island, New York City, one of the key things, Long Island Railroad was not immune to it, obviously, and we did suffer a lot of folks that were in quarantine. The MTA family as a whole suffered a lot of positives with COVID-19, and tragically, the MTA has suffered fatalities as many others did. Here at Long Island Railroad, we did have one fatality, and that was one too many from my perspective. But since March 27th, we've been running what we've dubbed the Essential Service Plan, and that was really because despite the drop in ridership, and at our worst point, we were probably only carrying 3% of our typical riders, and that ridership means a drop in revenue, a drop in fiscal certainty. But those 3% of our riders were heroes. They were healthcare workers. They were food delivery folks. They were utility workers. They were, transit workers. Anybody that had to get to their jobs to help New York get through this pandemic and save lives, that's what we were running service for. That plan, I'm proud of the fact that even despite that we had a lot of folks ourselves out, was robust. It was 70% of our normal ridership, of our normal normal peak service. And what we did from the beginning is we wanted to monitor service and we wanted to be nimble and adjust. And very early on, after the first day, observing
Phil,
some flows.
did I just hear you say that you're getting close to a regular ridership already?
No, I'm sorry, Ernie. What I was saying is the essential service plan was 70% of our normal weekday schedule, despite the fact that at the time we were only carrying 3% of our ridership. Little by little, since May to now, it has slowly grown day by day, week by week. We're probably still only carrying about 10% of our normal ridership, but we are seeing it grow, and we anticipate come Monday with New York City entering phase 1, we will see more. And I'll get in a little bit about our service that we'll be running. But back in March 27th, what we did is we were adding trains when we needed, and ultimately we landed at 70% of our normal weekday service, over 530 trains running daily. And that allowed people to spread out among the cars. It allowed them to still get in and get home when they needed to. Because during this time, not only is it the hard work that was going on by these folks, but a little peace of mind was important to them. And that's important during these uncertain times. So I'm proud of what Long Island Railroad has done to support and get us to this point where we are seeing the regions start to enter phase 1. Long Island was last week, and New York City is Monday. And this is all part of getting everyone back to some sense of normalcy, but also reminding people that we still need to practice all the things that we've been doing to date with regards to face coverings when you're in public, and particularly, it's not just when you're commuting on the railroad or commuting in the subways, but those face coverings, using hand sanitizer, all those things that have been recommended are essential to stopping the spread and keeping us on the path forward. And that's in your daily lives, and I've reminded our employees not just to practice these things when you're at work, you should practice these things when you're home with your family, when you're out food shopping, when you're out filling up the car with gas. And I think people are heeding it. In my daily trips on the trains, I see majority, if not everybody, wearing face coverings. And that goes a long way, again, to peace of mind.
Are you allowing people to get on trains without the face coverings?
Well, what we're doing is obviously, Ernie, we're messaging very aggressively that face coverings are required, not only on the trains, but on platforms and staircases, because really what the message is that when you cannot maintain social distancing, you should have, or you must have, a face covering. So really, even if you at one point, say, use an example, standing on a platform or walking down the stairs, there's a chance that someone will pass you in the other direction. So you really should have that face covering on at all times. It's a courtesy to your fellow riders. And again, not just in the MTA transit system, but wherever you are, the face covering should be handy and ready to wear if you're not wearing it all the time. It's courtesy to others and in protection for yourself as well, I believe. Talked a little bit earlier, the reliable service is paramount. Having people understand that when they get on the trains, we're going to get them to their destination is not only important before the pandemic, but it was important during the pandemic, and it's going to be vital as we come out of the pandemic as well. And you talked a little bit about some of the major efforts, and the railroad has not stopped in terms of continuing to address infrastructure needs.
I was going to ask you about that, Phil. How are you doing? Are you on schedule on all your projects?
So yes, we are. I'm proud to say that even though we
Your
had
cameras,
Ernie, what? Excuse me, Ernie?
I think Ernie may be having some technical problems at his end. He started to say your camera was stalling, but I think it's something at his end. So go ahead and continue, and I'm sure Ernie's system will repair itself, I think.
So I was talking a little bit about the efforts of the workforce, continuing to deliver on not only infrastructure state of good repair, maintenance, inspections, but supporting some of the critical projects that are essential to Long Island Railroad, both before the pandemic, but even now as we look to get out of it. And East Side Access continues, mainline third track expansion continues, ADA accessibility continues, and Long Island Railroad Forward. Those things of treating urgency with track circuits and track replacement and track inspections have not only continued, but in some cases we've taken advantage of the reduced train service and the reduced ridership to actually accelerate some of that work in a more cost-effective manner. And we've learned how to do things differently with the pandemic, given that we didn't want to have workers in close quarters. And in some cases, you can't avoid it, but in other cases, we found new ways of doing inspections and factory acceptance testing using video cameras and viewing things remotely. All of these practices helped us not only continue moving these projects, but things that we're looking at making permanent in terms of how we can be more efficient going forward.
Bill, I don't know if you were aware of it. There was a blackout there where we didn't have you on screen. So I might have missed it. The question I was asking was, are you on schedule for the third track?
Yes, third track is moving along. It's on schedule. East Side Access is on schedule. And one of the things I think we learned from the fact of the level of service we ran, and we ran at over 98% on time during the pandemic, was that our system was already beyond its capacity before the pandemic. So those projects are vital to the railroad having more operational flexibility and more ability, quite frankly, to perhaps provide service to changing workforce. I think many businesses that we offer rides to their employees are looking at doing things differently, right? You hear about the real estate and companies looking to maybe set up offices now outside of Manhattan. So the traditional trip from, the AM peak from the east side to the west side and reverse may change. You may see more inter-island commutes. You may see more reverse commutes. And third track, East Side Access, all of that will give us that ability. But I was mentioning how the work that we've been doing in ADA accessibility was vital. And back on April 30th, we opened up and made that station fully ADA accessible at Murray Hill Station in Queens. 2 elevators there. Proud of the effort that the team did. They kept working because all of these things are still important before the pandemic, during it, and after. We continue with our concrete tie and track replacement. Back in early May, we've hit our 400,000 tie on the system. It amounts to over 1/3 of our entire system with concrete ties. It's more reliable, it's a better ride, and we're going to continue that effort. Those are the types of things.
Well, one of the problems with the wooden ties is they did deteriorate. Now, with these concrete, with all the vibrations and everything, do they have a tendency to deteriorate as well?
No, we're finding them much more resilient, much more reliable. And that's why we're continuing to focus on that effort. Even in fact, this year, we've already done 30,000 concrete ties. And normally we would not have started that work until about now. So it just shows you how the folks have found ways to accelerate work during this pandemic. And that's all the more better because that is giving more reliable service to the people that need to use the railroad. In preparation, again, for the future, for improved operations, on Nassau Tower, we did a cutover, and we're able to now improve operations by having them more in a centralized location in Jamaica Station. What we haven't done, though, is we haven't moved the employees over from the Nassau Tower. We're ready to, as we retrofit Jamaica Center for social distancing within the office, and to make sure that we don't have critical operations staff taken out with perhaps a positive in one facility. So those are the types of things that we're prepared to do. We've accelerated, and we're ready to flip the switch when that time comes.
When you started this discussion today, you said that you were operating with a much higher ridership than you had in the past. were you at capacity? And if you were at capacity, now that people have learned to do things like we're doing today, and they find it better in some cases, I'm not saying it is, but will you be able to maintain a high level of service? And because more and more people were going on the railroad, and now that may level off. Is that something you considered?
Well, I'm proud to say that before the pandemic, not only were we carrying more people in the beginning of 2020 than we did in 2019 and 2018, but our on-time performance was improving during those months as well. And in April and March, actually March was when we were still carrying significant ridership before it slowly dropped off or quickly dropped off towards the end of March. We were on pace to beat March 2019's on-time performance as well. So yes, we were carrying more people than we did before. Yes, the system was at capacity, and in some cases, again, I'm proud of the service planning folks to be able to run as many trains as we do with our system the way it is a testament to the creativity of those folks, because we're not the traditional single track and just run from end to end. You know, the connections, the fact that we have limited tracks, all of those things, including the fleet, is things that had a capacity, and we maximized it to be able to run more trains than traditionally that system would be able to or should be able to run, which is why it's a balancing act. When you have one minor incident during the wrong period can, you know, unfortunately ripple into a much longer delay than one would like. But we were improving, service was getting better, and we were carrying more people. So we hope one day when we get back to that, you know, all the efforts that we've done will prove true. You know, and one of the things that I was going to get into back in 2019, early, there were a lot of issues with broken rail. We committed to tackling that. You know, the Sperry testing program that we do, it's federally mandated, but the FRA only requires once a year. And we went from twice a year to 4 times a year as part of our plan. And what we're doing with that is we're identifying these hidden defects and we're fixing them before they fail. And because of that,
you can examine a track for metal fatigue. You have the capacity to do that?
The Sperry testing, yes, runs and it finds these hidden defects that are not visual to the track walking inspection program. And because of that, the robust program, this early January and February, we did not see the number of broken rails that we saw last year and the year before. And we're going to continue monitoring that because we've done a lot of repairs. You know, just this past month, we did over 4 miles of rail replacement that were identified with Sperry track testing. And we did that proactively before any issues occurred. And while we were there, we also installed concrete ties. So we are doing things in a much more accelerated manner, you know, as I talked about, with more urgency. And then when we had those tracks out along the Atlantic branch, we piggybacked on that to, again, more efficiency. And we installed 2 significant crossovers, what we call beaver interlocking. It's just east of Jamaica. That interlocking will give us flexibility to support Jamaica Capacity Improvements Project, as well as support operations improving as we look towards the future. So again, you know, everyone should know that the railroad is not only just focused on running essential service now, but everything we do is to look and see how it can benefit us long-term and benefit us across the system. You know, this work through Jamaica is affecting every branch. It improves every branch. So, you know, those are the types of things that we want to do. It's not just a localized improvement, but something that allows us to continuously work towards improved service across all branches.
Your work in Jamaica, is that adding new tracks?
These added new interlockings, new beaver interlockings allowed train movement across tracks, and allows us more flexibility to maneuver as we do planned work and maneuver in the event of an unforeseen incident. So, having that flexibility at the right locations is crucial. At the same time, you don't want to have too many because every movable part is a potential failure part. But these are huge to operations, so we're doing that. We've also accelerated critical track work in the Port Washington branch. Obviously, that's one of our busiest branches as well. But with lower ridership and the essential service plan, we're able to actually give our track infrastructure team a longer outage, extended the limits, and we're making the railroad safer. And that work is coming to.
I was going to ask you that question. Because of the pandemic, did it give you the opportunity to operate quicker? It may have been a positive for that function of your business,
Well, it's a balancing act because when you say operate quicker, I assume you're referring to the construction work. We did accelerate at the same time. Our engineering field forces also had a lot of positives early on. So we had to find ways to balance that and support the other major projects, as we mentioned, East Side Access, third track. With regards to operate quicker, the train schedule that was identified is what we're running, but it enabled us to do more work within the system, provided we had the workforce availability. And again, despite the fact that we had some severe concerns with workforce availability early on, we found ways to do things. Other critical projects, Positive Train Control remains on schedule as well. The system integrator, along with our workforce, I mentioned earlier about doing things remotely. Typically, when we're testing Positive Train Control and the onboard equipment, we'd have several people in the front car. What we were able to do is have many of them do these inspections remotely, and these are the kinds of things that I think we're going to practice moving forward.
So is there a couple of points that you'd still like to make before I open it up to questions, or are you ready for that?
Let me just see what else a lot of work on the expansion project, right? We have the station work ongoing at Carl Place, Maryland Avenue, New Hyde Park, Mineola stations. All of that is ongoing now. As people come back to work on Monday, some new people, they should realize that Mineola stations now have temporary platforms. They're further to the west. Floral Park elevators are still ongoing. And grade crossing work, New Hyde Park grade crossing elimination is ongoing, and so is School Street. A lot of bridge work. Workforce is doing phenomenal, but you could turn it into, you could let some folks ask questions.
Ernie,
Do you have any questions?
Ernie, let me just, we learned something. This is our first meeting, everybody knows. And we told you earlier that you can raise your hand to ask a question. If you're at your computer, you can do that with the Alt-Y key for Windows or Option Y. There's also an icon. We've since learned, though, that there are some people who are dialing in on their telephone, and there is a way to do that. If they press *9 on their, telephone handset, then that would raise their hand, and you can ask a question if you're dialed in. But so a little bit of last-minute instruction. So again, you can raise your hand. Thank you. I see a few people are doing it with Alt-Y, Windows, Command-Y, Mac, or *Y on your telephone. Okay, thanks. Sorry to interrupt. Shall we ask the first question?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So I have Mary Lavelle. I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. And you can, if you can unmute yourself, then you should be able to ask your question.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. President Eng and everyone, we understand now more than ever how important air quality is, especially among what we've been experiencing with this pandemic with COVID-19. And so my question is, President Eng, what are you doing to ensure that the $21 million that was appropriated by the state to purchase the replacement of the Long Island Railroad freight locomotives, with Tier 4 switch duty cycle locomotives. I was glad to hear that all your projects are on time. And this RFP 6263 has been out since 2018. And so I'd like to know, where is this RFP? And what is the time frame in order to purchase the cleanest locomotives for the communities that these freight railroads, these freight trains go through?
Well, first of all, good morning, Mary. It's good to see you. Hope you and your family are doing well. And I know how passionate you are about this. And I know we've spoken many times with regards to our commitment to purchase the, the cleanest Tier 4 locomotives that meet the needs. And I know there's been some different discussions on, what the needs are. The railroad has, this is one of those projects that we want to accelerate. We want to get those locomotives in the hands of New York Atlantic Railway because anything is better than what they're using right now. And at the same time, we want to be, make sure that we're doing this in a collaborative way. And that's why some of the steps are, have not gone as fast, because we know some of the concerns you've raised. We gave time for the MTAIG to investigate the procurement. We're waiting to get those findings back. I believe, as you've mentioned, they've completed their investigation, but we don't have their findings yet, and we've reached out to get that. So it's one of those where we're trying to continue progressing the project, and at the same time, make sure that we're doing this in a collaborative way that gives everyone the assurances that we're doing everything we can with regards to the cleanest Tier 4 green locomotives.
Okay, the next question comes from someone who's set up just so that they're identified with the word iPhone. I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute, and please introduce yourself, since the screen doesn't tell us who you are. Are you there? I don't think this person may have accidentally hit that function to raise their hand, and that's what I'm going to assume, since we're not hearing from them. Just going to double check, make sure. You should have an opportunity to unmute yourself, but again, you're only designated here, identified by the word iPhone. Okay, so those are the only raised hands that I had to ask questions. Again, if you're on the phone, you can do *9. On a Windows computer, Alt-Y, or on a Mac, Command-Y. Oh, Peter Golem, yes, I'm going to go ahead. You had your hand up before, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you to unmute. And we have somebody else as well. So, Peter, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great.
Okay, first of all, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm not a regular railroad rider, but when I do take the train in, I see the big physical improvements that have been made at the various stations, and I think we're moving in the right direction there, no pun intended. My question is, as you're well aware, the state has an aggressive plan to decarbonize our economy, including ground transport. It's electrifying what are now diesel locomotives so that we eliminate the fossil fuel use. So what are the railroad's plans to electrify what's now diesel?
Thank you, Peter. So one of the key components of the 20 to 24 program that I had put in there was to have a firm brought on board to help us evaluate all of our non-electric territory and help us to set the priorities moving forward. The Oyster Bay, the Port Jefferson, Greenport, Montauk branches, they're all important to not only create a greener railroad, but also important to see how we can improve service along those corridors. That consultant will help us put a roadmap. The railroad did have plans and priorities. I have my own thoughts on it, but I wanted to have another party take a look at that. At the same time, we started in the last program, and we're going to continue and make sure that this is part of the system-wide look. The Port Jefferson branch itself has a separate consultant looking at that. And we're going to keep an open mind to improving service along all of these corridors, whether it be electrification or other things. And it's not just those components, but also ensuring that we have the right of way. Many areas where we have single track are things that we need to look at. And at the same time, we want to take lessons learned from third track and not go in and impact communities as we look to improve railroad service. It's one of those balancing things where I need to take a focus on the communities that we're serving, but at the same time, how do we do this in a way that doesn't, make that improves the quality of life through the communities that we go through. So it's those types of things helping us prioritize not just where we look at electrification, but where we can double track, where we can provide more reliable service. Again, it's a strategic approach to doing things. In some cases, in Port Jefferson as an example, doing all the work of electrifying and double tracking can only be really fully beneficial if we have the appropriate yards to support more trains on those branches. And those are the things that we need to look at. And it's not just whether we can electrify, but do we have the yard space available, and how can we do that in a way that the community that perhaps we would recommend Long Island Railroad Yard to be is one that is welcoming of those needs.
When will those plans be available for public review and comment?
Well, the pandemic slowed us down with regards to getting out on Port Jefferson, and we still are we're still very preliminary on that, so we're not quite ready, but we hope sooner or later this year in the summer. And then with the larger system-wide, that still is something that has to start. So not quite there, unfortunately. One of the things that we do have to take a look at is, the fiscal picture. A lot of projects are still moving, but we also have to see, we're happy that the federal government, under the CARES Act, provided the first, authorized the first $3.9 billion to help MTA, and we're optimistic that, they'll see our needs and support the needs, in the second request. So, it's one of the, when we have the ability to share that, we certainly do, because the public feedback is going to be essential to us making the right decisions.
Bill, I have a question I'd like to pose. As you probably know, I've been a proponent of maglev, and I was looking at the line that you have going from Ronkonkoma all the way out to Greenport. That's got to be a big money loser for the railroad. You don't run a lot of trains. You don't have a lot of traffic, and the part of not having a lot of traffic is the same reason that in New York City, the subways have a lot of traffic, because they're reliable, they're frequent, and they're coming. Excuse me. So what I did was I'm working with something with Supervisor Romaine on a plan to go from Ronkonkoma to Greenport on a single guideway. It would be so fast that you wouldn't need a two-way traffic, because it would make the round trip in about 50 minutes and make all the stops in between. And I was wondering if that's something that you would even look at, because it's going to cost about $500 million. And but I do believe that having that kind of reliable service, you'll have a lot more people coming in too. And you wouldn't be running full trains. You'd be running single cars, because you can do that with maglev. And it could all be automated as well. So you don't have engineers, you don't have the diesel, you don't have a conductor, you don't have to have anything. So I was wondering, is any of this sound attractive?
Well, Ernie, you know, I mentioned the system-wide firm that we're going to bring on board, and what I want them to do is to look at all of these branches, including Ronkonkoma to Greenport, because what I want to do is also not just focus on one location, but again, understanding that even the robust 20 to 24 program didn't cover all the things that I would like to do in 5 years. And, you know, so a project of that and new technology, we're always open to hearing about it. And, you know, those are the kinds of things where a firm that's looking at across all of our systems can help us make priorities as we go ahead. You know, so one of the things that I'd like to do is, you know, that in that case, you know, and this is where feedback will be important. You know, you run a different type of service between those locations, you know, and then how does that tie into others who maybe want to have a direct trip into beyond Ronkonkoma? So those are the things that I think are important to look at, but that doesn't mean, you know, there's not an opportunity to consider those types of technologies here.
Well, the inventors recognize that you have to integrate maglev with what's left of, you know, the rest of the system. So they do have an ability to do that. If they could actually run with a modified track on the same tracks that you're running right now. Now, here's what I'm thinking. If the real estate is there, you can leave the original tracks right where they are and put the elevated, guideway. And if we make, we're probably going to have a new administration next year, and they'll probably be wanting to do a lot of infrastructure. We might be able to get a lot of federal cash to do that, and we then would have a demonstration project where it wouldn't be a big cost to your system, but it would be an example of how you can run better places, better parts of all the rest of the system. Even if that's the only one that does happen, it's still a vast improvement over what you have there.
Well, Ernie, if it were just about railroad service, you know, that might be something, but I think the environmental aspects of an elevated structure through that territory would probably have to be part of an EIS because, you know, and this is just me, I love that train then going through the trees and seeing all the green as it goes from Ronkonkoma to Greenport. And, you know, I think that would have to be one of those where we have to look at the balance between how do we improve service through that corridor, and at the same time maybe maintain some of the beauty that corridor has. So, you know, again, I would never say never to anything, but at the same time, you know, if that corridor has a lot of natural beauty there, and I don't know, you know.
You know, I've never been on that train.
Ernie, we have 4 questioners and 15 minutes.
All right, keep going.
I don't think you have the screen in front of you that shows we have 4 people waiting in line.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Kevin Himes, I'm going to ask you to unmute, and ask your question.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's great to see the people back at Limber again. And President Eng, thank you so much for being at our meeting today. So my question is, by the way, I'm the new president of the Ronkonkoma Chamber of Commerce, and I would like to know when service will be improved. Right now it's hourly from Ronkonkoma. When will that be improved, adding additional trains? And next, what is on scope for Yaphank in terms of moving the Yaphank station? So I'm concerned about the Ronkonkoma line.
Thank you, Kevin, for the questions. First of all, Monday, we're enhancing service. We wanted to prepare for the New York City reopening, phase 1, and I'm proud to say that we are. So Monday, you will see nearly 90% of our normal weekday service restored. With regards to Yaphank, that is in the program. That effort is moving ahead very well. My team has been having conversations with Brookhaven, with Suffolk County, with others. And our plan is to still relocate that station, once we have everyone's feedback, because we know there's an opportunity to improve and support the area in a better way.
That's great. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay, Andrew Sparberg, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, good morning. I just unmuted myself. Some of you may recognize my name. I'm a retired manager from the railroad, retired since 2007. And Mr. Eng, my question is, what is the status of the M9 fleet right now?
Well, the M9 fleet, Kawasaki continues to build those cars. They had a little slowdown at one point early on where they wanted to make sure they could protect their employees. But we continue to do testing on those. We continue to have new cars being built in Nebraska and in Yonkers. And, the ones that we've had in service have proven invaluable to us. We're seeing how, with the Essential Service Plan, having the M3s not being utilized allows us to enhance reliable service. So the M9s are vital, and we're happy to continue receiving them and putting them into service. It's essential that we have a reliable fleet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next question is A. Figliola. I'm sorry, I probably didn't get your name correct. But
yeah, no, it's okay. It's Anthony Figliola. Saying, how are you?
Great. Go ahead with your question, please.
Great. I was looking to hear me this time. My question was actually, you had touched upon it before with regard to the electrification feasibility study for Port Jefferson. I know that's something that you guys had considered last year, and you said that perhaps it's going to be now in the summer this year. You also touched upon the fact that you were looking for, obviously public support once that came out. Any idea on if it does go in the summer? Any idea on when that would be complete and when you would seek public input?
Well, it's already started, Anthony, and one of our plans was to start going to the various localities and discussing it and getting feedback. Obviously, there are folks that welcome the railroad improving service, and there are folks that may be concerned about what that means to their community. My understanding is that there is the sufficient right of way to do what we need to do. But one of the things is where is an appropriate yard to support enhanced service to Port Jefferson and Huntington as well through that corridor. And those discussions we hope to have later this summer, but the study has already started. I don't have an end date for when the study finishes. It's obviously one that is not, a project of that size is not currently in the program, but that doesn't mean that as we do improvements along that corridor or any other corridor, one of the things that I've always looked at is this improvement going to not only do what we want to do for today, but set us up for, possible improvements that we need to do later. So some of just as an example, when we come in and I'm not just saying Port Jefferson, but any branch, if we have a bridge to replace that, could we, instead of replacing a single track bridge, can we build one that doesn't preclude the ability to easily add a second track in the future if that's the determination that we want to do.
Next question is from Rosemary. I think you can go ahead. You're unmuted.
Hi, it's Rosemary Miscali. I'm a transit advocate. I had a question about the fare structure. I know when Essential Service started, the fares were all off-peak. Is that still the case? And when will that change to the normal schedule? And is there any look for, if work from home continues as a long-term strategy for companies and for workers, of looking at the fare structure to see if that still makes sense? Because, if you work from home a couple of days a week, you'll end up paying as much as the monthly ticket.
Hi, Rosemary. Good to see you again.
Good to see.
Yes, we are looking at fare structures, but obviously fare structure modifications require board approval. But we understand that with changing ridership patterns, there might be ways that we can better support that, and knowing that maybe there'll be more telecommuting, less monthly commuters. I think we need to take a look at a lot of things with regard to that. With regards to Monday, we're going to continue to have off-peak fares for the time being. We're going to monitor ridership, and we'll see if when we need to go back to peak fares.
Yeah, as we get riders back on the trains, I mean, safety is going to be obviously their biggest concern, but we don't want to create an incentive for them to drive and park in the city because the cost of the fares comes out high. So I would just in these next couple of months, as we build back up ridership, that you keep an eye on that.
No, we understand, and one of the things, it's not just about the cost of the trains, but I think we all know that there's not enough roads and bridges for everyone to just simply drive, and even that, people will have to adjust their hours if that's their case. But on the railroad, something I didn't talk about earlier is it's not just the number of trains and the service, but the amount of unprecedented disinfecting that we've been doing on our trains. Every train car is being disinfected daily, and every station touch point is twice a day. These are things that we, while we had robust cleaning, and when that was one of my focuses on improving cleaning, the disinfecting that we've been doing is another level of unprecedented cleaning that we hope gives the riders a little more, again, peace of mind as they come back, particularly the ones that have not been taking the train the last few months because of the social distancing and the essential workers. But now, as we have new businesses as part of phase one and those workers needing to find ways in, we want them to know that if you come on our trains, people are wearing masks, that we are disinfecting, and that we're doing everything we can to give them a comfortable ride.
Okay, the next question is from Kenneth.
Yeah, good morning. I don't know why my camera's not working, but the question I have is, we're in a new world, and I know you had mentioned about cleaning, but how are you handling social distancing and stuff like that on a plane, on a train? Because I know a lot of times you go on a train, it could be standing room only.
Well, during the essential service plan, early on, the first day, March 27th, we were monitoring it. And there were some trains that were a little more crowded than people liked. So what we did then is we added 12 trains to the service to accommodate that. And through this whole essential service plan, we've been monitoring ridership. When Long Island reopened phase one, we added cars strategically on the branches that we anticipated to increase capacity, because we know early on people are looking for that ability to social distance. Having said that, in the mass transportation, and it's not just Long Island Railroad, it's across the world, is one where the ability to social distance in the future is one that you cannot necessarily maintain in every system. Systems that have reservations and that are intercity are more able to do things of that nature, but in a system like ours, at some point, the social distancing will be nearly impossible to do. Having said that, though, I really think the key aspect to people feeling comfortable and being safe is the face covering, is the hygiene practices that everyone has said. Even before COVID, they said, wash your hands. That's obviously very important now. Washing your hands, using sanitizer, not touching your eyes, noses, and mouth until you've had that opportunity to do that. But the face coverings are vital. And again, in the past, you had a cold, you went to work still, right? Because you needed to get your job done. But I think now we're learning that if you're not feeling well, you should stay home. And if you have any underlying conditions, you really need to consult with your medical advisor on the needs that you need to practice, because at some point, you're right. The 6 feet that has been recommended is not always going to be able to be maintained, and that's not just on the railroad. That's you know, as some sense of normalcy comes back, even the things that we're seeing now, if people are wearing their face coverings, I think that goes a long way to stopping the spread and keeping people healthy.
Any thought
That's
on
what we message.
any thought on temperature scanning?
You know, that we're doing that with our employees. We hope other businesses do that with their employees. But, you know, one of the challenges that we would have if we wanted to do that is the time to load and unload cars would be nearly impossible to keep the trains on schedules if we were to do that, you know, with every rider that wanted to board a train. You know, so unless we look at technology that can scan a whole car, which, you know, we're going to continue seeing what is out there on the market. You know, I don't see how we can do that. A lot of this goes back to, you know, people practicing their good habits of their own. If you're not feeling well, you should really stay home. You should go see a doctor. If you have a temperature, you know, again, you should find out why you have a temperature. You know, and even that, if we were, you know, that is not going to capture everybody, you know. So I think this gets back to good social hygiene, washing your hands, sanitizers, and face coverings, because those are things that you can do, and we can do immediately.
Hey, Anita's got the last question.
Oh, thank you. What types of disinfecting systems are you investigating implementing? I've read about far UV, which doesn't harm people but kills COVID. So I'd be interested in hearing what types of disinfecting systems you're using on the stations and in the cars. Thank you.
So right now, everything we're using is EPA approved and proven to not only disinfect but kill COVID-19. I'm proud of the efforts that the team have done. You know, when we first started disinfecting train cars, you know, we started doing it every 3 days, every 72 hours. And it was a labor-intensive effort because we were using the sanitizing wipes and going through and cleaning the cars top to bottom, the bathrooms top to bottom. We quickly found ways to be more efficient. That effort was taking 30 minutes a car, and we utilized foggers, and we're using a botanical-based disinfectant, and using the foggers, we're doing a train car in 5 minutes now. And stations, we're finding ways to do more efficient. But you're right, we are looking at other technologies. Ultraviolet is something that MTA is piloting. They're piloting it right now in transit. One of the things that we need to find out is, you know, we know it's the research team has said it kills COVID as well, but we also need to see how it can be used in an efficient manner. Right now, we're going through our cars in 5 minutes, and anything that we do has to be able to beat that time frame, because contact time for our workforce and the fact that when we get back to full service, literally every train we own is running. It's very important that we do these things in the most cost-effective but efficient manner, because our workforce is stretched to the limits right now. Really proud of everything they've done. Our labor partners have been very supportive of this, and folks have really stepped up to do that. You know, there's other things that we're continuing to look at, antimicrobial type things that perhaps can, the claims are that they can not only kill the virus, but kill it longer term. You know, if those are proven to be effective and EPA approves them, you know, certainly we will look to do that, because the amount of cleaning that we're doing right now and this effort every day is a tremendous strain on the workforce. But we're going to do that because we know how important that is to rider comfort. And we're looking at other products that, you know, we've gotten a lot of folks reaching out to us. The industry is looking to reinvent themselves. And if there's something out there, believe me, the MTA will take a look at it. And we've been a leader, and we're going to continue to be leaders in this field.
Okay, that's the last question. We're wrapping up at exactly 10. Ernie?
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you everybody for tuning in. And I want to thank my technical staff, which is Frank and Lynn, and they've done a great job in helping me get this together. So I just want to mention that we're going to have Kevin Dayhill. He's the president of the Nassau-Suffolk Hospital Council, and he's going to be talking about the stresses and needs of the hospital system. And I hope you'll be with us on that date. That's June 19th. And it'll be the same time on June 19th. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you again, Mr. Ang.
Well, thank you for having me, and hopefully next time we can do this in person.
Yes, I hope so, sir.
Take care, everyone. Be
Thank
safe.
you, everybody, for attending. LIMBA started in 1967 and has been meeting continuously, and you are a little part of history today, attending and helping to make happen the first LIMBA virtual meeting. Thank you very much.
Bye all.
Bye-bye.